You're muted. I can't hear you. So
I know. Hey, this is like a Monday on a Thursday. It's all good. It's okay. Welcome everybody
nice.
to the Veteran Lifestyle Magazine podcast. I'm Annette Wittenberger with Joe Palacios, and this is the Veteran Lifestyle Magazine podcast. If I just said that, yes,
Yes.
where we share real stories from the military community and beyond, from mental health to transition. We bring you conversations that empower, connect, and remind you that your story matters. But I wanted to say a little something about our guest because we're very excited to have her. Today, we're joined by Julie Tully, a cowgirl turned nomadic Navy spouse whose memoir, Dispatches from the Cowgirl, Through the Looking Glass with a Navy Diplomat's Wife, was published in 2022 and went on to win a 2023 IBPA, which is the Independent Book Publishers Association Benjamin Franklin Award Gold Medal and a Military Writers Society of America Silver Medal. In her book, Julie chronicles the years she and her family lived and worked in Africa, weaving a story that is part travelogue and part midlife coming of age narrative. She writes about life, culture, and the places where they intersect, and she's now working on a follow-up to her memoir. She is also both a ghostwriter and developmental editor. Her passion for storytelling shines a light on the lesser-known side of military life, and we're honored to have her here today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. I am honored to be here. I've been following you guys for quite some time, and it is truly just a joy.
Thank you. That's such an honor. People actually follow us, Joe.
Not you dragging people with us. Like, come on, let's go.
Hey, I'm a storyteller. I live for stories.
We do.
I love it too. Stories. Oh, I'm sorry. And then I was just gonna say
Yeah.
I love that too because I think story time brings us together. And if you watch any of our stuff, you know that's kind of a big thing for us is trying to find ways to bridge community gaps and bring people together. So thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. So let's get into it. I want to know everything. Let's just start with, so you said you became a storyteller because you didn't see family like yours represented in existing military narratives, which is so true. What specific stories or perspectives did you feel were missing? And what was that turning point that made you decide to share your family's experience?
Oh, wow. So my husband's the active duty. I'm the spouse. And we started out, he was in the submarine force. And as a military spouse, there was a lot out in our culture, in our society, that kind of prepared me for what I was walking into. I could see myself in TV shows and movies. There were books. If I needed to have something to refer to, it was there for me. And I've always been a reader. I've always, and I also avid lover of visual media as well. And so, like any time in my life, I would deep dive into, oh, this is what I'm going into, and here's versions of me. This is what I could be. About 10 years into his service, though, my husband opted to transfer to the newly established Foreign Area Officer Community for the Navy. And while I knew what that meant for me in theory and what meant for our family, there were not narratives out there that were examples for me to look at. There were not books, there were not movies, TV shows. We were kind of this silent, unknown part of military service. And coming from a background in public relations and communications where it was drilled into me and I was a purveyor of information to people to increase understanding and commiseration amongst society, it frustrated me to no end that I couldn't see myself, I couldn't see my family anywhere. And to me, it was a disservice. And I set I set out to right that wrong, I guess.
No, that's so powerful, and thank you for doing that. We need more people to be able to kind of just get that courage to start sharing experiences and talking about hard things, good things. I mean, all of it. So you actually created that space for more people. So that's just very commendable, and it's just amazing to know people like you who do that. You make me want to. I mean, we'll talk later, but you make me want to just start something new and just go for it.
I I will say, like you mentioned in my bio, I started out my life as a cowgirl. I come from a ranching family in Northern California, but my roots are deeply, deeply embedded in that lifestyle of cowgirls, cowboys, and that whole idea of you are, sorry, my AirPods are not cooperating today. But that whole idea that you are in control of your destiny, but that you also have the power to do things. And so that's, I mean, I've rarely taken no for an answer, is really what it comes down to. And in this case, when I told my husband, I see what you're doing, I see what this community is doing, I see what the families are doing, that they're going places where we never even hear about the military, existing. And why aren't we sharing that story? You know, it wasn't like I wanted to share top secret information. I just wanted to tell our story.
Well, I think like I said earlier, thank you for being a storyteller, and that's what we like to do here is amplify those kind of stories. And I think there's a perception of the military that your stories are telling foreign area officers in that kind of environment. It's the stuff that you don't hear about. It is literally that winning the hearts and minds in
Exactly.
community, right? It's like bridging those smaller gaps. And I think that's, again, where we need to highlight more because, yes, our military is a mighty military. And no one probably can stand up to us in a fight. But our military can also do amazing things, like help build stuff, help places kind of empower themselves, right? There's operations on that, and I think that's the kind of thing that we don't share enough. So thank you for those kind of stories.
Thank you. And it also comes back to my theory was coming, like I said, coming from public relations and communications. I wanted to show the rest of America what we were doing, not just our military, not just me. I wanted to show the average American, when you make decisions, when you cast your vote, when you say we want to use our military for XYZ, I want to show you exactly what your military is being used for and to the extent possible. And the sheer number of family and friends and even fellow military friends who had no idea why we were doing what we would do or why they would send families to locations so far from any flagpole. That, you know, it's like you say, Joe, it's telling our stories, it's getting it out there.
That is so cool. And I was just going to ask you, do you happen to know Anna Larson? Because they were stationed in South Africa.
So I don't know Anna personally.
Okay.
We're only connected on social media. It's a weird, small community, the FAO community, the Foreign Area Officer community.
Yeah.
But we all are interconnected. So yeah.
That is so cool. That oh my gosh, I'd love to hear you guys sit down and talk together and talk about all that whole life out there. Again, thank you for sharing that because we don't know, So
Thanks.
yeah.
You
So
validate me. Thank you.
you are validated. You are amazing. So let's talk about, and I apologize in advance because I was out of town, so I don't have a copy of your book, but I am sure going to get it. So let's talk about your memoir, Dispatches from the Cowgirl, Through the Looking Glass with a Navy Diplomat's Wife. It chronicles years living and working in Africa and has been recognized for the IBP award. What inspired you to turn those we talked about that, your personal experiences, into a published book? But I want to know, how did you
It's life, and it's all good. It is all good. Roll with it. Trust me, in the FAO world, we just had to roll with it. Just go.
everybody wants to come to the door and all the dogs want to bark, and Joe and I were just talking about it before you came on. Everything happens all right now.
We may have a cameo from one of my cats, so it's all good.
He has cats that like to come in too.
It's fantastic. Keeps it.
So now that they're quiet, I was gonna ask the question because you muted. But anyway, what she was getting at was what inspired you to kind of open up your memoirs like that, and then like, do you have any reservations about opening yourself up to your life to the public in that?
So I am, contrary to what people probably think who've seen me on my public persona, and know what I did professionally before I became a full-time military spouse. I am an introvert. I'm a very, very, very private person. I like my solitude. I like my privacy. But at the same time, I've always believed in that if you're quiet, staying quiet does nobody any favors. Because that reticence to share stories or to open yourself up can also lead to misunderstandings. And so, excuse me, when my husband transferred into the foreign area officer community and we were chosen as Africa specialists, excuse me, see, you have dogs barking. I have a cough now. We received our first on-continent assignment, and that was we were going to be going as a family to Cameroon, which, if you don't know where it is, please do yourself a favor and get out a map and, make yourself familiar with the countries of the world, because it opens your eyes. But sub-Saharan Africa, we were being sent there, and this was, we found out we were going to be sent there in 2010. So this is still early days of social media. Blogging was king. But social media and public sharing of lives for military was still frowned upon. And I know that, if you have younger listeners watching this, listening to this, they're probably going to be like, there was a day that we couldn't share our lives on social media. Oh my gosh. But it existed. And so here I am, we're getting ready to move to Cameroon, and all of our family and friends, including military friends, but, extended family and friends who have no ties to the military other than us, were saying, one, why on earth would they send a Navy officer to Cameroon? And why is a cowgirl moving to Africa? And I kept sitting there in the early days, right after we received our orders, telling my husband, John, can I write about this? Please, please, please. I had been a blogger. I had some very small, unsuccessful blogs, but hey, they mattered to me. And I said, I can't blog, that's against the rules. Can't have a blog while we're there for military. But I want to be able to tell our family and friends, because the communications were going to be sparse. Internet was not strong in that part of the world. It wasn't like, we were kind of stepping back in time where emails and letters were going to be the way that we communicated. And so I kept asking my husband, I said, if I'm really, really good and I write stories home, they're solely about me. They're not going to be about you. They're going to be about me and what it's like to be your spouse living in Africa and kind of my reactions to what we're doing down there. Is that okay? He said, yeah, that's okay. So that's how it started. And I opened myself up to my family and friends. So it was just like writing a letter home. What's this, this month's 500 to 1,000 word story going to be emailed home about Julie, in Africa. And I was usually the butt of my own jokes. Me trying to learn languages, me trying to learn cultural things, me observing what it was like for this military spouse to be there. And I was only opening up my story to those who knew me. But we ended up serving 3 back-to-back tours in sub-Saharan Africa. And we went to places that I can guarantee you our family and our friends and the majority of our military friends would never, ever go. We were in Cameroon, then we went to Nigeria, and then we were in Djibouti. And I kept writing these stories. But as time went, the friends and the family were like, can I send it to so-and-so? Can I send it to so-and-so? By the time that we ended up in Djibouti, I had over 500 people that were getting this, boutique email from me about our life. And it really became a thing. And people were like, you have to keep writing these stories. And I was only showing it me to them. But a very, very dear, dear friend of mine who's no longer with us, who was one of my mentors in the submarine community, a spouse, toward the end of our time in Djibouti, right before she passed away, she said, you really need to turn this into a book. You really need to allow your story to be just, somebody else's adventure. And I said yes. And when we left Africa and when our time there was done, after a little bit of breathing room, we were stationed in Naples in Italy. I decided to look for an editor and see if it was actually a publishable manuscript. Working with the wonderful Brunella Castigliola that you've had on here from the Military Editor Agency. She and I worked and crafted what became my memoir. What has it been like to share my life and open it up with the world? It's been, well, not to steal your thunder, Annette, but it's been a wild ride. And it is, yes, there are days where I wish somebody who's completely random, who I've never met, who's picked up my book and read it, comes up to me and says, oh, that time when you danced with the Chinese Navy in Djibouti and you were like, uncomfortable and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, how do you know this about me? I want to crawl back into my little introverted self and say, oh my gosh, how do you know this? Or when people go up to my son, who in the book grows in age from 6 to 14 in the book, who is now an adult, when they go up to him and they're like, we read about you when you were a little kid. Do I ever wish I could put the genie back in the bottle? Only slightly. Because what I have done is exactly what I set out to do, is now, even if it's just an adventure story for somebody, but somewhere out there, there are also military spouses like myself who want to see starting out in the foreign area officer program who want to see what it's going to be like, and they're like, oh, that could be me. Sorry, that's a really long answer. Sorry, Joe.
It's perfect.
It's okay. Actually, it just reminded me. I actually spent time in Djibouti too, and I actually I agree. I think I think there's one of the hidden gems of the military, especially if you're able to get on a company tour, like if you're able to bring family, is the opportunities to see different cultures and to learn different things, but also to see the similarities of what, like, yeah, cultures are different in how they do things, but to kind of get down to the core of what a family wants or what every people are doing is kind of the same. It's they want to live a happy life, provide for their loved ones, and it goes about it in a different way. But I think it just kind of highlights similarities more than differences when you get to do these visits and these longer tours, especially for military service. I think that's what we have a different perspective on the world. Anyway, I'll land my plane there because we're talking about you.
You're right.
That being said, like a follow-up question, like how many of the people that you met in Cameroon, in Nigeria, and in Djibouti that weren't necessarily a part of your foreign area officer families, but actual people that you met locally to learn the cultures, and like, how many of those are you still in touch with, and how many of them kind of are supportive of your book and kind of help with any cultural stuff?
So I will say that as it's a memoir, the book was written from my perspective. I did not lean on any of my contacts for telling of the story. It is strictly from my point of view. But how many people I'm still in contact with? A fair number. The majority of them fall within the diplomatic community. Not only Americans, but other countries' diplomatic communities. It's been really wild to have some of our friends from other countries say, I read your book, even those where English is not their first language. My book hasn't been translated yet. And they said, oh, I read your book and it was fantastic. And oh my goodness, it took me back. And that's been the best. We stay in touch as much as we can. But it's like any other posting for a military family, or anytime you move, anybody, people, fall in and out of your lives. And do I regret losing touch with some of the people? Absolutely, because there are days where I wish I could go back and, certain people, I wish I just could sit down and chat with them again and give them a big old hug and tell them how much I miss them and how much they meant to me and how much they helped me. But that's life.
It's funny that you brought that up. I actually had to write a note, and it's a great perspective that I'd like to share, because I think it has value for listeners and everybody. You said just like when you move from post to post, and I think that is a unique thing among our veteran spouse community, is how normalized it becomes to have real relationships just fall in and out of our lives. Like how that becomes so normalized because of the nature of living that lifestyle, that military lifestyle, for so long, especially if you go as long as it goes to become a retirement. Like, and I think even us struggling younger. So good for you that you still keep in touch with some. And I also like, because I agree with this that you said as well, even though it's like that, I feel like when we reconnect with those, it's like no day has passed anymore. That's another unique kind of trait. So thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
I also want to just mention something you had said, that, it's hard sometimes to keep in touch with everybody that you serve with, and you wanting to just let them know what they meant to you. And I feel like you kind of did that by writing the memoir. You wrote stories
Yeah.
about your experiences in that country and with these people. So it was like you were just that. I'm sure to them that is very special. So when they read that, they're like, I remember when I was there with her, or I remember when we were dancing, or whatever the case is. I feel like you did that. You kind of so, but I it is sad. We move so much and we lose contact, but I truly feel that, God always, he puts people right in the path that we need to be on, and on the journey, and with the people that are meant to be on that path with us. So I don't know. That's just how I
Thank
feel
you.
about.
I hope so. I mean, I have never really thought of it that way, but I guess, it's not just my memoir, it's not just Julie's story of what happened to her. It's a love letter to the years that we lived there and all of the people and places that made me who I am. Because, like I say, it's not, my book is kind of a part travelogue, but it's also a part coming of age story. And I arrived in Africa on the cusp, of turning 40, and spent, you know, all of my 40s basically living in Africa. And it was a turning point. And, I it was me, like Alice in Wonderland, me becoming a different version of myself. And this book is a love letter to really the people that were there and that guided me along the way.
Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I think writing a book, period, is huge. You're sharing your life with everybody. That's so scary, right? And you want to make sure you're doing due diligence, and because your husband's still serving, and but you also want to share your experience, but you got to be careful. It's like this whole thing, but you managed to do it, and now people are like, I remember that part of your book, and you're thinking, how do you know? It's so much. So it's just it's just I have so much more respect for those that put their life out there, because when I decided to write my book, I was terrified. I wanted to make sure I was doing everything right and not making the wrong people mad. But then again, I wanted to use my voice. So it's like,
Exactly.
is where's the balance? How can I do it the right way? But yeah, so I'm
Totally get that.
I think you're awesome. So I
Oh,
just well, and because I was raised in California, Southern California. Joe's from
okay.
California. Joe's from
Oh,
California.
fantastic.
I'm from Texas,
Oh, I'm sorry, but didn't you?
Okay.
but I was a transplant thanks to the military in California for so long. It's kind of like second home. So
Okay. Okay, so you still count. You still matter, Joe.
California is a special place.
It
It's
really is.
I know there are people out there that love to joke about California, but if you know, you know.
You do. I just spent my 50th birthday there. So
Oh, congratulations. Happy birthday.
thank you very much. It was very meaningful to me to be out there. So I love it. I always love it. I would love to know, how has this whole experience writing this memoir, how has it changed you, like really deeply changed you? I know you wanted to share about your life, and you've done work before, but I feel like once a book is out there and people are recognizing parts of your story because you wrote it, how has that made you feel, and how has it changed you? You won an award a couple years ago, but a couple years can change a lot of things. So,
Wow. I guess the most significantly for me, when my husband transferred into the foreign area officer community, I was at a crossroads with my professional career. We had been married for a few years, quite a few years at that point, and we had accepted our first overseas assignment. And to do that, I had gone on sabbatical from my career. Like many spouses, in our military, I had a really good career. It gave me purpose. It was who I was, and it defined me in many ways. But then I went on sabbatical. We decided to start our family, and we took an overseas assignment, thinking that it was going to be an 18-month assignment. Gotta love our Navy detailers. 18 months, we promise. The assignment kept rolling. We ended up spending almost 3 years in that assignment, and I was watching my career slip away. And when my husband transferred into the foreign area officer community, knowing what that meant to us, because the first word in foreign area officer is foreign, which means you're going to spend a heck of a lot of time overseas. And this is the early 2000s. This is a time when remote work was not a thing. I was floundering, completely and utterly floundering, because I had watched, I had gone to school, I had received my education, I had watched the career that I built, and it was actually a more successful career at that point in time than my husband's, fly out the window. So fast forwarding, all of these years, and, using the skills that I had honed in my career to start writing, fast forwarding to writing and publishing a book, part of the reason that, I went down the path and I decided to actually take writing seriously and become an author was because it was giving me purpose again. It was a newfound purpose for me. And when the book published in September of 2022, we had just returned home after 18 and a half years straight overseas. I had worked sporadically, kind of doing here, spot work here and there, different types of contract work at embassies, writing various articles for magazines, stuff like that, but really nothing like I had done in my previous career life. And so the book publishes, and I'm thinking, this is going to be fun. It's, maybe my mom and a few friends will buy it. Granted, my publisher was hoping for more, but, in the back of my mind, I'm like, God, I just hope like 50 people buy it. I never saw what was coming. Never saw what was coming. The book took on a life of its own, and it ended up winning a major award. And what it did was it gave me validation, and it started a career for me again. And it's kind of like, you never really know where you belong until you end up there. It's like being on it's like being lost on a road, and you have no idea where it's going. And when you finally get to the end of it, it's like, oh, I get it now. This is this route to this town. Well, this is the route to my career and where I'm meant to be. So it has changed me profoundly, writing my book, sharing my stories. I have found out that I have a superpower, watching my son grow up and watching, the Marvel universe and all these people that had these special superpowers. I finally found out my superpower was, in that it's that I'm a storyteller. And not only am I writing my own stories, but now I've realized I have the ability to help others write and share theirs. And so it has pushed me into this new world, this new career path of showing the importance, especially for those within the military community, writing stories that that share and bridge the military civilian gap.
You just gave me so many emotions are running through me right now, because I have personally, and Joe knows this, I talk about it a lot, but it's taken me years to be where I'm at now. To be so vulnerable and authentic, and storytelling has just saved my life. And you just saying everything that you just did, I resonate with that so much. There's just moments in your life where you're like, what am I doing? What's my purpose? What's next? And then you find it. And storytelling is so powerful, and it's so scary at the same time, because you're never going to make everybody happy, right? Someone's going to say someone's going to say something negative about your book. Someone's going to not be happy about what you wrote, or you wrote too much, or you said too much. So
there's always those mean girls out there.
You're always going to have a mean girl. There's a whole club.
Yeah.
You know?
The 1-star reviews with no comments, and you're going to look at it and you're going to go,
yes.
And then you're going to say, you know what? That's okay.
It's fine. It's fine, because the courage that it just took you to even put it on paper and share it with the world is going to hit the right people at the right time. And that's all that matters.
That's right.
And I'm just like, gosh, yeah, I'm feeling all the feels right now, because I truly just resonated with that whole statement. And there's days that I have discussing my feelings with Joe, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Nobody cares. We don't have the followers. But then it's people like you that come on the show, and it's like, this is why we do it. This is why we do it, because God just put people in the path that we're supposed to be on, and you have just validated me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. My mom always likes to, when I was a little girl, my mom always said, you're Pollyanna. So if anybody out understands that terminology, it's that, I guess I started out as a people pleaser early in life. And so I'm always looking for the bright side of everything. And starting out in public relations, you're always looking for the bright side. So I guess it's just, it's just changed. It's rewritten my DNA into thinking I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I know that, but at the same time, stories are all that we are. In the end, when we are long, long gone, and there's very little to remember, it's going to be a story that exists. That is all we are.
You're exactly right. And that's even more reason why I do what I do, because I'm leaving a legacy for my kids and my grandson. And
exactly.
They're gonna have is stories. It might be all over the internet, but I mean, it's something that it's
a different way of storytelling. Storytelling evolves over time.
It does, always. With you transforming, you are now, and you found your purpose and your calling and all of that. Now you're going to be that person, that mentor for us as a ghostwriter.
I do ghostwriting.
Yes.
I've actually been a ghost for quite a long time. It started when we lived in Africa, and I ghosted a lot of my husband's press releases and stuff because, coming from the submarine community, that wasn't something he had to do. He had to teach himself how to become that kind of a writer. And so I ghosted work for him. I ghosted, speeches for him. I ghosted speeches for ambassadors. So I found that I had this ability to step into somebody else's voice in their story and actually talk for them. So now I work as a ghostwriter. I also work as a developmental editor. I do book coaching. I do author marketing. I get really excited about people telling their stories, and I just want to help them get it out there.
That's not an easy task to take on. That's not easy to do, because you have to really get into people's minds, right?
Yeah, you do. Absolutely. You have to get their voice. You have to get their mind. But it's weird. It was something for me. You say it's not easy. For me, it was like putting on a set of gloves that fit.
Okay.
It's like all of a sudden I realized that if I sit here and talk to you and Joe long enough, I can mimic your stories. So it's one of those, many things that my teachers taught me growing up that, they're like, oh, you're not going to be cut out for this. You're not going to be cut out for that. I want to raise my hand now and say, I found out what I can do.
Well, not everybody has the same superpower, Julie, and you found that your superpower is the storytelling, but you're helping other people do it. And I'm not in your shoes, but I don't think that's easy to do. You are looking at it because you have experience, but I don't think not everybody could do it. I don't think everybody could do it.
I love it. I honestly, I don't, thank you. But I will tell you, I grew up in a culture of storytellers. I grew up sitting around tables and campfires and other places with, ranching families, grew up going to people's houses where visiting people who were at that time, I was just a little tiny girl and they were, rapidly approaching 100, and they were telling these stories. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. These stories have to live on. And in my family, that's, we would continue telling everybody stories. And now, even now, if I go back, and I'm sitting and chatting with my brother, we'll be like, oh, do you remember so-and-so? And they always had the best stories about this. And people deserve to have their stories live on. And that's, like, to me, as a lover of books and visual arts, it's that ability for others to share and to pass it on, that if we lose those stories, who are we? When we lose somebody's story, and especially in the military with so many of us and so many veterans with so many different stories, and growing up with friends who had served at Pearl Harbor, and places like that, listening to their stories deserve to live on. All of our stories deserve to live on. Like I said, in the end, that is all we are. Those friends who have been long, long gone, they live within me in stories, and I tell their stories to other people. And that is, I have found, it's my superpower. Now my goal, my mission, my career is to not only tell my own stories, but to help people tell their stories too. And especially to tell them in a way that it's not just, some of these stories, especially for the military, they're such fascinating stories, but they never make it to the general public. And that is really where I'm focusing my work, is saying, tell your story, but let's get it told and packaged and out there in a way that Joe Schmo on the street would say, wow, that's pretty darn interesting. Because the more that we're such a small percentage of the American public, that we need to make sure that our stories are out there.
Well, I think it makes them relatable. I think there's a gap between military culture and civilian culture, and it's this gap that's perceived because we're doing something else that they don't know, understand, right? But the stories, I think, are relatable. They're just kind of done in different fashion, but I think when you tell them correctly, people that aren't in that community go, oh man, I totally relate to that. That's actually really cool. And there's kind of brings us together. So I think that's the importance of telling stories. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And that's, I mean, like, what I found, strangely enough, when I published my memoir, was that, you know, initially I thought, besides family and friends, it would be military that would be the primary focus of my readership, and they're not. My the majority of my readers now, as my book gains traction, are civilians.
That is so interesting. What has been the feedback from the civilian community?
Oh, it's fascinating. I actually now, in addition to that, I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. I've kind of become, you know, in many capacities. I'm also a speaker, and I've been invited to many conventions, fundraisers, organizations to speak about my story. They were all civilian. All civilians. None of these are military related entities. And every single time their reaction is, one, you know, thank you for showing us a side of the military that we had never heard of before. Two, thank you for taking us on an adventure to Africa, to a place where we'll probably never get to go. And three is just this innate fascination in somebody who started out like they did as a civilian and got dropped into this world. And so, in a way, even though a lot of them will say, "Oh, I could never do that," or "I don't know how you did that," but in a way, they kind of see themselves in me, like they see the civilian side of me, and then they can see how, you know, I can relate it to them of what it would be like for them to be dropped into my situation. So it's been fascinating, and the civilian response has been overwhelmingly positive.
You know what's funny is that as you were sharing that, I always think of the people that used to say, "Oh, I could never be in the military. I couldn't do that." But when you tell them stories, I think they get to go, maybe I could have done. Like not necessarily, but then they feel like, oh man, I am capable. And I love that when you share those kind of stories.
Well, it's like a lot of them, because a lot of the book is about, you know, we are in Africa as a family, and our son, you know, is going through basically his entire elementary school time frame while we lived in Africa. And people will ask me, "Oh my gosh, what was it like to raise a child like that?" And I said, "You know what? I don't know. It was normal because I've never raised a child in the United States." So, you know, for me, it was no different in many ways than what they would have gone through. And so I tried to convey that when you find yourself, you know, like you said, Joe, you, people come up to you and say, "Oh, I could never do what you did. I could never be a Marine or whatever." It's that actually you can. You know, it's maybe you can't do exactly that or something, but when you're put into a situation and you find yourself there, it's, you know, it's kind of sink or swim. Nobody gives you a you know, an owner's manual for a child. So for me to raise a child overseas in remote locations that were not always the most friendly and kind places to live, I was just raising my child like, you know, like the natural way that's embedded in my brain, you know, as a human. And so that really showed civilians, oh, you know, and I didn't screw him up, or at least I don't think I screwed him up. So.
What an incredible story. I can't wait to read it and just live through your eyes through that experience. So this is so exciting. What is your, if you're able to talk about it, what is your next project? What do you want to do next?
So as I have been, as people have read the book, And as I have been on this incredible journey over the last 3 years of traveling around and speaking to groups and talking to them about my experience, the number one question that I receive from my readers, from the audiences, is what happened next? Because the book ends very definitively as we leave Africa. But it's open-ended because, like I said, it's a coming-of-age story, and it's showing the progress of a modern military spouse, a woman coming to terms with who she is through circumstance. And I'm always writing. I always have a journal or my iPhone open to my notes, or, I am constantly writing. I write in my head as I'm talking to you guys. There are notes going through my mind of things I want to write about. But as I started writing notes after the publication of the book, I realized that I wanted to tell the rest of the story of what happens when somebody we ended up staying overseas for 18 and a half years, coming home to a country that was pretty foreign to us culturally. We're still red-blooded Americans that, bled navy blue, but we left the United States. My favorite joke is we left the United States when NCIS was a brand new TV show, and we came back when it was like on season 21 or something. So it's, and iPhones didn't exist when we left the United States. So much happened in the 2 decades that we were gone that the story really started to become what happens to that girl that grew up. And I realized that the story is actually, it needs to be told backwards to be told forwards. So the follow-up memoir is looking at both the 50-year-old woman that returned to her home state, to a place where she was very well known for who she was, which was not being a military spouse, and looking back, starting with the 19-year-old girl that she was, that formed her into who she would become. And so that's as much as I can tell you. It's in the works.
I love it and I understand it. You can't tell too much, but already I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be good. It's gonna be so good. I can't wait. I am so excited that you chose our platform to come on. I mean, like we're always so honored because we're just a little old podcast, magazine, just Army Marine vets, just doing what we love to do. So when we get people like you on here, we're like, wow, we're kind of a big deal because of you, Julie. So thank you so much.
I'm glad you think so, but see, I think you guys are the big deal. And
I actually took offense to Annette's calling us little.
You guys, we're not little. You guys are a big deal. And you are this type of platform, and developing a magazine that's focusing on people like us, because now my husband is a veteran, so I'm a veteran spouse. This is what I dreamed of all those years ago when I was, chipping away at my husband saying, can we write about this? Can we write about this? This is what I didn't know what I wanted to exist in the world. So you guys are fantastic.
I appreciate that. You know what I meant, Joe. You know.
She's very humble, is what she is.
What I love is that we're kind of a big deal. And for those who know me, know how that really was kind of cool for me to hear. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So where can people find you to learn about all the things, your projects, your ghostwriting, your mentorship, just all of it?
Well, you can find me online. My website is at julietullyWriter.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Instagram is where I hang out most often, at Dispatches from the Cowgirl, because that was the name of the original stories. That is who I am, is who I will continue to be. Um, for the other side, the ghostwriting, the developmental editing, all of that, you can find me at the Military Editor Agency. I am a proud partner with Brunella Castagliola, and we are doing everything we can to help the military tell their stories.
I love that. I love her. I love them. I mean, yeah, Brunella helped me a lot when I first started writing my book. So I'm so excited that you are a part of them. But even if you weren't, I still adore you. So I just think this is so great. So excited for everything.
Well,
that's to come.
I hope to meet you both in person at some point. If anybody is going to the Military Influencer Conference, I will be there this year. We will see each other. There we go. I will be there.
Okay.
But I'm around. You can find me online, and if you can't find any of my social media sites, just type in my name.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, I have to do my due diligence. I need to, before we hop off, I have to thank our sponsors. We have quite a number of people that believe in our work, and I must call them all out. And we will begin with Sea Waves, Mill Spouse Transition, Sales Platoon, Mill Space Books, Mountain Up Cap Company, Maxwell Soaps, A Wild Ride Called Life, Bunker Labs, Shield of Sisters, the Utah Veteran Business Resource Center, W Brand Publishing, and Hauli Socially Inspired. So thank you guys all for helping us to make this happen. Thank you for being here. Please follow, like, and subscribe. We are all over, even TikTok. We are on TikTok. I don't do the dance moves, but I will publish our episode on there. One day, maybe it'll happen. But
taking lessons, so dance moves will eventually show up. So
perfect. Perfect.
Can I write about that?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Thanks again, Julie. It was such an honor to have you on here.
It was such a pleasure. You guys are awesome. Joe, Annette, thank you.
Thank you so much.